Well, we all saw this coming in the wake of these terrible shootings that happened last week. What are the Democrats and the left wing nuts doing? Well, they're sitting there saying we need gun control, we need assault weapons bans, we need this, we need that. We knew it was coming, folks. So, I was going to do this video on my own, but I recently watched the Salty Cracker YouTube channel, and he reminded me of a few things, and I'm going to put a link to the description to some of his more better videos about this. Definitely check him out. He's a very good YouTuber, and I really do appreciate what he does, and it helps me out with some of my content, because, hey, sometimes that's how we find out our news. But this is what I want to talk about. So I was at the gym, and CNN was on the TV. Ha ha ha. And the Democrats were, once again, they were coming out with a bill that would, let's see, what was it? It was universal background checks, stop gun loopholes, and an assault weapons ban. And they also passed a budget, or trying to pass a budget, to help fight domestic terrorism. Now, I want to go through the bill first, and then I want to talk about the domestic terrorism part, because that domestic terrorism part is going to be a big part right here, and I'll explain why. So, but I said, first, let's go through the bill. So, universal background checks. People, they already happen. Anyone who watches this and is a registered gun owner, you can't buy a gun from any store, any pawn shop, any gun show, or even online without going through some sort of background check. Those are already in place. Now, you could say, well, what about, private gun sharing, or, like a father passing a rifle down to a son? Okay, those don't have background checks, but at the same time, I do believe a family should be allowed to do such a thing, especially if it's like a family heirloom, like, oh, this is your grandfather's gun from, I don't know, 1930, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, sorry, going off on a little rant. Background checks already happen. And as anyone who has a gun, or bought a gun, y'all know this. You can't buy a gun anywhere without a background check. There we go. That's easy. That's done. Now, the gun hold loophole, or gun purchase loopholes. They always blame gun markets, flea markets, online purchasing, and then, the private selling of guns. Alright, the private selling of guns, we can't do anything about that. I'm sorry, it's just, sometimes people just buy guns from friends or family, or just, I don't know, maybe a Craigslist listing. I highly doubt that, but you never know. You can't do anything about that. The only way you're going to do that is if you crack down every single person's house in existence and look through their gun cabinets. Gun shows. This is always the big one they talk about. They say you can just go into a gun show, you can just buy a gun, walk out, no background check, no nothing. This is the biggest lie that the Democrats keep pushing. Anyone who has been to a gun show knows for a fact that, one, all the gun vendors have to be approved by the local law enforcement, which means they have to have the documentation to prove that they legally purchased these guns and that they can legally sell these guns. That is the honest-to-God truth. And if you've been to a gun show, or if you're a gun store or gun show, person who goes to sell guns, you know for a fact you can't do that. Same thing is with flea markets. Flea markets, like, there's always one up where I live every summer. There's a guy who sells guns, and you know what he told me what they do? So this is what happens. Say you go to a flea market or a gun show, and you're interested in purchasing a gun, even if it's a rifle, a pistol, or an AR. You cannot walk out with that gun that day. So what they do is you give them the money. You're like, hey, sir, really interested in this gun? I'd like to purchase this. They go, all right, here's your receipt, here's your ticket number, as proof of purchase for this gun. Then they go, okay, we can send this to any gun store of your choice. In my case, where the flea market is located, they usually take it to the pawn shop that's nearby. So you give them the money, They give you your ticket, they send the gun to the gun store, and then you go to the gun store, give them the ticket, and say, and proof of purchase, like, I bought this from him, he gave it from here, and they'd be like, alright, he came, he talked to us, he told us to expect you, and after you pass the background check, here you go, sir, thank you so much. This is what happens at flea markets and gun shows. Now, sometimes they'll have the equipment there to do a background check on you automatically, and yes, you can walk off with the gun as long as you pass that background check that day. But it's not this whole you go in, walk out, no one checks you. That is a lie. And the same thing goes for internet shopping. You can't buy guns online like you do Amazon. It's not like Amazon Prime. Get your AR-15 in 2 days or less. Hey! No, literally you have to submit your information to the owner online. They go through their systems, they punch you in, see if your background check clears. They'll send you a confirmation email. They'll be like, sir, you passed your background check. Where would you like us to send your gun? Keyword right there. Online shopping, it's not it comes to your door. You want to know why? Because that's illegal. Federally. That isn't against the law. Federally, not state-wise, but federally. So once again, if you purchase a gun online, you have to give them the information of a gun store, and also sometimes you have to go to that gun store and get their permission. They'll send that gun to the gun store, they'll be expecting it, you go there, once again, proof of purchase, and they'll give you the gun. You see, they're lying to us. I mean, the Democrats are trying to make it seem like these gun hole loopholes are just rampant throughout the country and everywhere, where literally what I just explained here, folks, is exactly what happens at gun shows, flea markets, pawn shops, and, even your average gun store. It's just the only difference between the pawn shop is usually the pawn shop has the necessary tools to do a background check on you there. I mean, it's crazy, but also, apologies, also, it's not surprising. So the last one is an assault weapons ban. I have been over this before. Assault is a term. Everything can be an assault weapon. Every weapon in existence. A gun, a rifle, a pistol, a bow, a crossbow, a sword, a dagger, a spear. You get where I'm going with this. All those can be assault weapons. Because why? Well, if you use it to assault someone, assault is an adjective in that format. And then they talk about weapons of war and banning military-style weaponry. Do I need to repeat what I just said? That list of simple weapons I gave. Everything can be a weapon of war. A hatchet can be a weapon of war. A shovel or an e-tool, an entrenching shovel, can be a weapon of war. Every gun can be a weapon of war. Military style. Once again, I go back to the simple design of the 12-gauge shotgun that the military uses to breach doors. Guess what, folks? Since the military uses it, the logic of the Democrats is that's a military-style weapon, therefore it's scary, therefore it's dangerous, we must ban it. Civilians can't have tube-loaded shotguns because, it has a higher magazine or higher shell capacity of, 1. Oh, I mean, you get where I'm coming with, and then eventually it's going to go from military style to police style. So all you Glock lovers out there, you can kiss your Glocks goodbye. They also talked about we need to ban high-capacity magazines. Now, I'm going to use New York as an example here, and I want to apologize real quick. Allergies are really kicking me, and nothing's working, so sorry if I sound nasally. Anyway, so New York, they had a magazine capacity ban. So at first, you couldn't have a magazine higher, I think it was 15 rounds, and then it dropped to 10 rounds, then it dropped to 7 rounds, and then it dropped to 5 rounds, and now I think they're even talking about making it just 3 rounds. Y'all gotta think about that. They will lower the bar of what they considered high capacity magazines. Not what me, not what you, the people, no, the government determines what's high capacity. Just like how the government will determine what's military style, Just like how the government will determine what's a weapon of war and what's an assault weapon. The bars are going to keep lowering, and people, you know this. We all know this, that they're going to keep dropping the standards on what's considered what's considered a dangerous gun and must be banned, because the end game is just a complete gun confiscation. I think that's pretty much everything they covered in the bill. Now, once again, I apologize, allergies. Let's talk about the funding for domestic terrorism. Now, does America have domestic terrorists? Of course. But what is the left going to do with it? Well, it's obvious. They're going to weaponize it. You see, I highly doubt that the Democrats are going to put Antifa on the domestic terrorist list, and they're not going to give police or even National Guard the funds to fight Antifa if they needed to. Why is that? Well, because Antifa, as violent as they are the Democrats' ally, and they are also beating their political opponents. So in that message, it could be literally the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But here's the thing. We are in a society now domestic terrorism can be anything from going in and shooting someone to even just someone saying wrong thing online. Now, in this bill that they're introducing, they also are doing red flag laws. Many of y'all probably know what that is, which means, anyone who shows signs of going to be an active shooter, therefore they are investigated and their guns get taken away without a warrant, without just cause. It's just, hey, you did this, we're taking your guns away. If you add that logic to the Domestic Terrorism Act, well, think of it this way. Anyone who has a MAGA hat, in the left's opinion, because remember, they say Donald Trump radicalizes these people all the time, and white supremacists, and racism, and all this other stuff. So, if someone wears a MAGA hat, what's to say that the left won't say these are domestic terrorists and they all need to be investigated? Who's to say that the left won't push their weaponization of the law, and you will start to see a lot of conservatives, a lot of people who wear their MAGA hats proudly starting to get investigated, starting to get, red flags plunked on them because of wrong think, because they have the wrong political bias. Because, look, honestly, the most gun owners in this country are conservatives. Now, is there some Democrats and liberals who own guns? Absolutely. Guns are for everybody. But when it comes to a majority of the owners, I truly believe that most of them are conservatives. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm a veteran. I know how to use guns. I've been trained how to use guns. Someone somewhere could be all like, hey, I live next to a veteran. He's a conservative. He's a Trump supporter, and he owns guns. I think he's very dangerous to the community. Therefore, I get called up, and my pistol's taken away. My little Glock that I bought legally and passed a background check for. I mean, y'all see what I'm coming with. Some of y'all might be looking at this and go, well, that's ridiculous. That would never happen. Or, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. Don't worry about it, man. It'll be good. No, I'm not. We are at a point right now to where this type of thinking can become real. We are at that point where it can happen, and that's the scary thought. I mean, in one of the videos the Salty Cracker did, what's that little guy's name? David Hogg, I believe? He came out, some woman who was very pro-gun, she came out and said, we're willing to talk across the aisle, this has to stop. But then David Hogg replied to that tweet saying, ooh, look, they're scared. I like this. And it's just like, what? In the words of the Salty Cracker, that sounds like a mass shooter. Like, ooh, look, they're willing to give up their guns and they're scared. I like this. It's just like, oh my god, dude. And here's another thing I want to think about. This isn't from a heartless position, but the United States has like a population of 30 million, if not more? And like 30 plus people died out of a population of 30 million. And the government is saying we have a gun epidemic. And they're trying to punish the vast majority of legal American citizens, law-abiding, gun-owning citizens, because a handful of people died. That might sound heartless to some, but that's the reality. That's like saying, okay, I'll use, that's like saying someone died texting and driving. Well, therefore, phones are dangerous, so we must take away all the phones from America to prevent deaths by texting and driving. I mean, you see where I'm coming with here, folks. Yes, is it tragic that a handful of people died? Absolutely. But do we need to punish the rest of the nation for the acts of a few individuals? No, of course not. And, as the Salty Cracker also said, the left loves mass shootings. And I understand where he's coming from with this. Because every time there's a mass shooting, the Democrats rev up their gun control and go, yeah, now we have more evidence to back up our gun control agenda. But once again, I say, do we need to punish everyone for the acts and deaths of a few? I mean, some of y'all might say, well, that's still unacceptable. No one should die by guns. Well, people have been dying for centuries, folks. And not just by guns, but by everything. And, here's something else I want y'all to think about. This is a little off topic, but the Democrats want to have complete gun control. And they want to have open borders, free this, free that, and all that other stuff. Well, I'm trying to think of a word it. Mexico doesn't want that either. And it's not for the reasons you think. It's because if the border's open, a lot of Mexican nationalists are going to move up north. But the thing is, it'll also allow gun smuggling a lot more easier through the border. Because the cartels, MS-13, all that, they'll be able to just go to America, buy a bunch of guns, come back to the Mexico, and then distribute them. So, the Democrats say they want to close gun-hole loopholes, right? Well, secure the border then. That's a very big gun loophole, wouldn't it? Because it can work both ways. People will be smuggling guns across the state. And, people, an everyday person can be used. They could get someone, a law-abiding citizen, they're like, hey, look, you buy us a bunch of guns, we'll give you twice the amount of money to do it. People will do it. Here in Roanoke, in Virginia, someone was going around and busting in cars and stealing guns. A total of 12 firearms have been stolen. What's he going to do with them? I don't know. Personally, I think he's an illegal gun seller. So I think he's just, breaking in, taking those guns, and he's going to sell them to gangs or criminals or the cartel or MS-13 because they are active in Virginia. And, hell, that's a hell of a way to save money on guns, though, right? Just stealing from someone else. You see, guns aren't the problem. People will be. People have always been the problems, but yet the left wants to punish everybody and say that this inanimate object that doesn't have a soul is the problem. Anyway, I hope this video was at least informative. I mean, I'm tired of the lies, and I'm tired of them constantly trying to push this massive control agenda on all of us because of the actions of a few. And a lot of y'all should feel the same way. And as for the domestic terrorism, I'm not kidding, folks. If this bill gets passed, and it may not be today, may not be next year, but if the Democrats do get control of the House and the Senate, not necessarily the White House, but just the House and the Senate next year, you're going to see just a lot of craziness. And, well, I guess it will be the Democrats' view of what's considered a domestic terrorist and not what is actually a domestic terrorist. Because here's something real quick. I should have stated this in the beginning, and I do apologize, but the House Democrats rejected a bill to alert ICE of illegal aliens that tried to buy a gun. They rejected a bill that if an illegal alien is trying to buy a gun but failed, that gun store owner cannot alert ICE agents, go, hey, look, I just had a non-citizen with a lot of felons against him try to purchase a gun through me. They rejected that. But they want to pass a bill to force all of these rules and gun control on the citizens, but yet they won't pass something on the non-citizens. Why is that? Well, because the non-citizens are their future voter base. They got to give them all the freedoms that we Americans enjoy so that they are inclined and motivated to come to the states more, while the citizens have to suffer and pay the price for everything. I just want y'all to think about that for a second. You know, they rejected that bill, but they're going to try to pass this one. It's a clown world, folks. I'll see y'all later.